Hey, and welcome to another Tech Tuesday. This is Chad from Ascension Worship, and this week we're going to talk about speaker delay, what it is, how it affects your sound, and how to use it.
Hey, what do you say? Yes, it's that time again. It's Tech Tuesday.
So if your church is either very big or very long, you might have a situation where you need to set up multiple sets of speakers to keep the sound consistent, keep it as far as volume goes, and as far as tone goes. We recently did a summer camp where it was in a ballroom that was very long. This is kind of a diagram I made to kind of represent that. And in that venue, we had the stage on one end, and then we couldn't go wide ways. We had to go long ways. The first year we were there, we didn't know what the venue looked like. We just had two speaker stacks at the front of the stage, and it sounded good for the crowd, but by the time you got back to where the front of house console was and where the back end of the crowd was, you would have a bit of difference when it came to volume, high end, just overall clarity. So you had to kind of walk around a lot more than you might want to. You had to kind of learn what it sounded like in the back of the room to make sure it sounded good in the front of the room. So this last year, we learned from my mistake, and we brought in a couple extra speakers, and we had a delay fill going on. And so what we want to talk about today, and a lot of you are probably already aware of this, but what you need to do is you need to set up a delay on these speakers here. I'm going to refer to them as B, my B speakers, so that by the time the sound hits you from all these speakers, anyone standing back here is going to get the sound from B and A at the same time. Because if there's not a delay that's added on, I'm going to refer to it as a corrective delay, then what's going to happen is you're going to hear the sound of B right before you hear the sound of A, because it takes longer for the sound to travel that distance across to you. So by using a delay, once the sound comes out of A, by the time it hits B, that's when the sound is just starting to come out of B because you delayed it, and therefore it's all going to hit the people back here at the same time. So what I want to do today is show you why you would want to do this, what actual effect it has on your sound. I'm going to give you some cool audio examples today that will hopefully make this a little bit more obvious. So we've got a range of recordings we're going to listen to. Some of them we're going to listen to with recordings I did of an actual room. But first I want you to hear the recordings in a simulated environment, so that reverb won't really be an effect on what you're hearing. You're just going to hear recordings, and then some of them will purposely be out of sync time-wise, and some of them will be in sync time-wise. So we've got some things that have very transient information. And by transient, I mean it's like a very quick, it's there and it's gone. So think like the snap of a snare drum, or the initial attack of a kick drum, the strum of an acoustic guitar, the very beginning of that. That would be a transient sound. So we've got a popping noise that I made using a synthesizer. That's just very quick. It's here and it's gone. We've got a recording of me speaking. We've got a pad sound from an electric keyboard. We've got a drum loop, and we've got pink noise. So we've got some things that are very transient, like the transient sound, the drum kit, parts of the speech. And then we've got things that are not so much transients, but more of a long sustain, like the pad sound and the pink noise, that have a lot of frequency information in them. So we're going to be able to hear the positives and negatives of having a delay on, a corrective delay, and not. So let's hop right in. In this first example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play for you. The first set of recordings will always be two recordings happening at the exact same time. So you're going to hear very clear sound of what's going on. The second recording, when I play that, and I'm going to tell you when I'm doing this, one of them is slightly delayed. So if I zoom in here, you can see this is representing speaker B, which is our closer speaker to the back of the room. This is our speaker A. And you can see there's a very slight delay going on here, whereas when I play this first sample, they're both happening at the exact same time. So that'll give you an idea of what we're working with here. So let's start with this transient. Here are both files playing at the exact same time. If you have your speakers loud, please be careful. Some of this information is going to come through really loud. And again, this is in sync. And now here's out of sync. So in the percussion world, that's called a flam. A flam is when a drummer hits the snare drum, or really any drum, with both sticks at the same time, but one hand is slightly behind the other, and it creates a tap. So again, you can hear the difference when they hit at the exact same time. It's very clean. When there's this flamming sound, not only does it sound less clean, we're hearing two samples, but also if you notice, there's a volume difference because the waveforms aren't building up together to create one really strong waveform. So that's with the transient. Let's take a listen to it with some speech. This is in sync. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. And out of sync. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. So we noticed a couple things. We lost a bit of volume. We lost clarity. And there's like a weird mid-range kind of thing going on, which is a phasing element that's happening because, again, we've got all these waveforms that are coming at us. And now when they're together, they create a really strong wave. When they're apart from each other, when one wave might be up and another wave might be down, they cause phasing issues where some of the sounds are going to tonally change, usually in a bad way. So we got that with speech. Here is a pad sound. This is in sync. Out of sync. This one's a lot harder to tell. Here's in sync. Out of sync. So with this information, again, there's a lot less transient going on. It's a lot harder to tell a massive difference. I can tell you from researching this and listening to this a lot when I put this together, when it's out of sync, you are getting some phasing information in your low end. You're losing volume altogether, but most of it's in the low end. So I'm going to play that again. If you're listening to this with nice headphones or with a studio monitors or something with a subwoofer, listen to the low end. So again, here is in sync, out of sync. Real subtle, but a lot of that low end energy is missing. Here's a drum kit. Here's in sync, out of sync. That one's really obvious. We are losing volume. We're losing low end. There's a smearing happening with all the transients. If you listen to the cymbals, you're going to hear, because they've got the most sustain of everything in there, you're hearing some weird phasing in the mids. So again, here's in sync, out of sync. That's probably the most obvious of them so far. And then finally, here is pink noise. Pink noise is just random generated noise. To make sure this is a solid test, I am not using a pink noise generator in these tests, but what I've done is actually recorded pink noise from that generator. So every single one of these regions that you're seeing here are the exact same pink noise. The only difference is that they're out of sync on the second player here. So here's the pink noise in sync and out of sync. Kind of sounds like the Hypnotoad from Futurama, if you guys watch that. So again, listen to the mids. There's a lot of weird, funky stuff happening when they're out of sync. So here's in sync, out of sync. A lot of low end loss, a lot of weird stuff going on in the mids. All right, so here we go with our next test here. This is in an actual room. This is in our warehouse. I tried to, as much as I can, set it up like we have here, but using just one speaker from each stack. So I've got an A speaker that's far away, a B speaker that's up close, and then a microphone that's recording everything that's going on in the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to play all those samples back through. I'm going to let you hear, first of all, just the A speaker, which again is the far away speaker. That way you can kind of hear what the room sounds like. Then I'll play the B speaker so you can hear what the close speaker sounds like. And then I'll start to play them together in sync and out of sync so you can hear the difference in a room. So here is A. Again, this is all the samples for the microphone picking up the speaker that's farthest away. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. So you can hear there's a lot of crickets going on. It's a fairly echoey room. It's concrete floors, but there is some insulation up top, so it's not like tile, but it is. And there's a lot of equipment in there that's kind of helping to deflect and absorb some of the sound. But you definitely hear that the speaker sounds like it's far away. So here is B. This is a speaker that's only due to the nature of the experiment, it's only a few feet away. But it is, the only difference is that it's turned down a little bit, but tonally they're set exactly the same. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. Okay, now you've heard them both. Here they are together. This is out of sync. So you are hearing them just as they are. They're receiving the same signal at the same time. But because of the distance between the two, you will hear they're just kind of not gelling together exactly right. So there's no corrective delay on here. This is both speakers at the same time. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. All right, and then here we go with the in sync speakers. Excuse me. So there is a I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's about 32 millisecond delay that has been added to the B speaker. So again, the microphone is receiving the sound from the two speakers a lot closer together than they were in the last recording that we heard. So here is with the corrective delay, both speakers. Check 1, 2. This is me talking. All right, let's listen to some of these examples in closer succession. So here's our transient sound. This is out of sync. Here that you can hear the flam happen, and because I'm using the purpose of me using this sound is you can very clearly see, because there's such a small amount of sustain to that sample. You can see on here the two different files that are happening. So this is speaker B hitting us right away. This is speaker A hitting us at a distance. So again, here is out of sync, and here's in sync. Big difference. You can hear it, you can see it. It's like this has just been moved forward, later in time, because that's exactly what happened. So again, out of sync, in sync. And this isn't a huge room. I mean, it's big, but it's under 40 feet of distance between these two speakers. I think it's about 37 feet. And you can hear there's a very noticeable difference between these two. One more time. Out, in. Huge. All right, let's take a listen to speech. Here is the speech out of sync.
Check 1, 2. This is me talking.
So I'm hearing a lot of the back speaker. And I'm sorry, this isn't quite the same as hearing it in person, but it's the best I could do. But whenever I play this one, I hear a lot of the reverb of the back of the room. Here it is again, out.
Check 1, 2. This is me talking.
And then in.
Check 1, 2. This is me talking. Check 1, 2. This is me talking.
Nothing has been changed except for a delay was added to the B set. Once you do that, when you're in the room, it feels like all of a sudden most of the sound is coming from the B. Nothing has changed volume-wise, but because they sync up together better, it's like you're hearing less of the reflections going on from from the A speaker. So again, here is out of sync.
Check 1, 2. This is me talking.
In sync.
Check 1, 2. This is me talking.
Really, really helps clean up some of that clarity. Here's the pad sound. This is out of sync. In sync. Out of sync. In sync. This one's interesting. Again, there's no real transient information happening here. There's a lot of dense frequency information happening. So what's actually happening here is due to the room and the distance that the speakers happen to be apart, the sound is actually building up on itself a little bit, and the out of sync one actually has a little bit more volume altogether and more low end. So it's interesting. Sometimes these things, they definitely help with the transient information, but sometimes you get different effects on things that are less transient. Now you can of course always add, reverb and low end information to a more in sync speaker set to achieve this if that's what you want, but it's harder to take it away. So yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon here. So let's listen to that one more time. This is a pad out of sync, in sync. Definitely not as obvious as the transient heavy stuff. Here's another transient heavy one. This is the drum kit out of sync. And again, you can hear that flamming and you can see it on the recording. Here it is in sync. So we've got better clarity in the low end, better clarity of the attack. Definitely sounds a lot tighter. Again, out of sync, in sync. If you add this on top of the fact that you're going to have sound from the actual drum kit in the room, this is just one more thing you can do to help make those drums sound better. You could even go a step further and delay both sets of speakers to the drum kit. If there's a big enough distance between the drum kit and your A set of speakers in arenas and that kind of thing, that's a popular thing to do, so that the sound isn't coming to you differently from the actual snare drum than the speakers as well. So yeah, makes a big difference on there. And then finally, kind of like the pad, here's something with no transient information, but this is our pink noise. Here it is out of sync, in sync, out of sync, in sync. So it's interesting because both of them have some different phasing things that seem like they're happening. They're just different. But usually trying to get something in sync and make sure the phase is correlating as much as possible. Usually the first thing you're going to hear that in is in the low end. So that is one thing I'm noticing is that the low end from these speakers, and there's no subs hooked up, but they're 15-inch speakers that produce a pretty good bottom end. I definitely hear a stronger low end with the two speakers being in sync than out of sync. So again, here is out of sync, in sync. Yeah, pretty cool. So again, the biggest thing you're going to hear a difference on is going to be the transient stuff. So here's that drum kit one more time. This is out of sync, in sync. Cool. So now you know the effect that having a corrective delay will have on your sound to help make up for the time difference. Now the question is, well, how do you figure out how much delay you need? How do you actually apply that to your soundboard? There's a couple different ways you can measure this. Probably the most popular way is to just take out a tape measure or grab one of those rolling measuring things. I don't know the name of it. And just physically measure the distance between the two speakers. That will get you at least close to it. You might have to do some math if you've got some speakers that are hanging in the ceiling. If they're not, if all the speakers are at different heights, you're going to need to do some math to figure that out. One thing that I've just started doing recently that has been helpful for me for various reasons is I've been doing basically what I did for this video. I've been playing that popping noise and setting up a microphone, kind of center mass of the crowd towards the back and using that information to see what the distance is in milliseconds or even in samples if I need to get really tight on the information. The nice thing about me doing this is that then takes account the entire system, not just the speaker distances, but cabling distances, humidity, all the things that could affect the sound of speed, the speed of sound in your room, because it is more easily affected than, say, the speed of light. You can kind of go either way on that. I would at least start with, if you don't know how to do that kind of recording thing, just take a tape measure or buy one of those laser measures if you got one that's accurate, and use that information. From there, you need to apply the delay to your speakers. I'm going to show you how to do this on the X32, since a lot of the churches I work with have an X32. If you have a different digital board, there's gonna be something in there very similar. If you have an analog board, you're probably gonna need something like a DBX drive rack to apply delay to your B set of speakers. If you have any questions on that, you can email me and I'd be happy to answer you the best I can. So this is the old version of the X32 editing app. A lot of you ask me why I use this. I do it simply because it looks more like the board, and it functions just fine for me. So in this case, in that example, I found out that I needed, I think it was 32 millisecond delay to make up for the distance in speakers. To do that, it's really easy. You're going to go to routing. You need to go to your outs 1 through 16. And these are all your outputs. This is the kind of stuff you can delay. And then you're going to select your outputs. In this case, I had my A speaker was on output 15. My B speaker is on 16. Turn on the delay and then dial in how much you need. This is really cool because it gives you your 3 different options right away. If you know the amount of milliseconds you need, in this case it was 33.2, you can put that in. If you've measured it out in feet or meters, you can just type that in, or not type it in, but turn up the wheel till you get that. And then that will automatically calculate for you the amount of milliseconds you need. So that makes it really easy. If you are on, say, an LS9, if I remember correctly, I think the LS9 only gives you milliseconds. That's okay. There's a quick Google search will give you a calculator that will let you type in feet or meters, and it will give you the same information. It's just nicer than the X32, and a lot of the newer consoles, they help you out right away and give you that. So I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope you see the benefit in setting this up. It'll make your sound that much cleaner, which will make your job that much easier. If you have any questions, you can comment below, or you can email me directly at TechTuesday@ascensionworship.com. If you need us to come out and help you to do this, you can again contact us through our email, and we can arrange something for you. If you have suggestions for new videos, we do listen to your suggestions. So please feel free to email me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share. And until next time, have a great week. Again, this is Chad from Ascension Worship. I hope this has been helpful for you and your team. Come back here every Tuesday for new information.